I recently saw a mushroom growing way up high. I will show you that footage.
So for comparison, trash can, tree, that's a mushroom. There was a mushroom at this base. This is a dead tree, and it's all the way up there.
It was literally in my neighbor's tree, just hanging out way up in this tree. And it got me thinking, I've never seen a mushroom grow quite that tall, and I'm not exactly sure how that happens or why that happens. I decided to do a YouTube video on this today because I was doing a lot of research on it myself, and I thought maybe y'all have some similar questions. If you are new to this channel, I create lots of mushroom content. I create a Meet the Mushroom episode every single month on this channel. I will also create a collector card and a sticker set based on that type of mushroom. I have a Patreon where I send those off if you would like to be part of that, but I always make reoccurring content about mushrooms and specific mushrooms to be exact. This time, I'm actually talking about certain mushrooms that grow up high, why they grow up high, and what is the real truth about it, honestly. The very first thing that I saw for this mushroom that's growing up really high is that it was not in a live tree, it was in a dead tree. So this got me thinking, is the mycelium growing all the way up in that dead tree? Why does it want to be so high up? All these questions were kind of going around in my head. The next week, I actually went to visit my parents and saw mushrooms in their trees. I will show that footage right now.
I think that is lion's mane. What kind of mushrooms are these?
Those are chicky-walkie-peaky-walkie.
You said once they start doing this?
Once they die, once a tree dies, it definitely starts to mushroom.
I don't think that mushrooms growing in live trees is necessarily a good idea, because mushrooms can overtake a living thing and kind of feed off of that. I just did a video on the zombie mushroom, and that was a creepy episode, first of all. But second of all, it was kind of telling of what parasitic mushrooms kind of do, is it takes over a living organism to feed itself. So that's kind of why I was like, is this that kind of mushroom? What are we talking about here? What is going on? So the truth of this mushroom growing up really high is that this climbing mushroom that you're seeing is not actually a mushroom literally climbing up a tree, but it's more so the mycelium, the main part of the mushroom, is within this tree. And it basically is growing all the way up it and then having a fruiting body, which is what we know as the mushroom. Why is it growing up so high is my question. So the real climber is the mycelium. A mycelium is just a part of a mushroom, like I had mentioned, where it just kind of fruits out. Mycelium can get really, really, really large. Sometimes you'll see fairy rings, which is basically just a circle of mushrooms. The reason why it is an actual circle is because the mycelium is in the center of it underground. The farther that its roots stretch, the more that it can come up, and it usually does a cool circle, which is super cool. Only certain types of mushrooms do this pattern, but it is a really cool thing to see. How does it get to this dead tree? Whenever temperatures are right and conditions are correct for the mushroom to reproduce, it will sprout up from the ground, releasing its fruiting bodies, the mushroom, and from those mushrooms, it'll release spores, similar to a seed. And so that is why whenever you are picking a mushroom, you always want to tap it a little bit to release all of its spores so that it can reproduce even more. So those spores potentially have gone to this dead tree, have created a whole ecosystem within this dead tree. Now, the reason why mushrooms will choose dead trees over living trees usually is because it's a really great source for food for them. Whenever a mushroom breaks down decaying materials, this is considered the cypreic type of mushroom. The other type of mushroom is the mycelium that has a relationship with tree roots and kind of gives nutrients back and forth to each other. This one more so just feeds off of the decaying material and helps the ecosystem break it down a little bit more. Because the tree is dead, the mycelium can spread a lot farther and go a lot more places in a dead organism than a living organism. This is why the mushroom climbs, is because it has expanded all the way throughout the entire trunk of the tree. Crazy. Something else I haven't mentioned is that I actually saw a mushroom at the very base of this dead tree just a little bit ago. I think I even filmed it and put it on one of my art vlogs or something. I was like, wow, this is a really cool mushroom. This looks like the jack-o'-lantern mushroom, like, la, la, la. And then I think a week later, I was just kind of exploring around and I looked up, and that's whenever I found the same type of mushroom all the way up at the very top of this dead tree. This just tells me, number one, the tree is definitely dead. I mean, it obviously is dead. And number two, the mycelium has expanded throughout the entire trunk. Now, why do mushrooms grow up really, really high? I would say it's more so about the spore expansion. Releasing it into the air at a higher place allows better probability for that mushroom to grow even more. But I think it also just depends on where the mycelium has expanded and how far it's expanded. Kind of like that fairy ring where it expands to the farthest points and then expands through the soil. I think it's a similar thing. However far it can go is wherever that fruiting body will be. Kind of similar to a vine, a plant growing a new leaf at the very end of its stem. Kind of similar to that. Pretty cool stuff, guys. Do all mushrooms grow up in trees? So I know that there's the mycelium and the cypreic mushroom, so that means that there's only certain types of mushrooms that can live in dead trees. I kind of wanted to mention a couple of the species that grow in trees or grow up in dead trees. These species that climb are considered sapotropic. Sapro means decaying and tropic means feeding. The first type of species that we're going to talk about is the polypore. This is the bracket or shelf fungi. Now, the first time I've ever seen this type of mushroom wasn't actually in real life. It was like, it was like a thing I could buy, like a shelf, and it was like in the shape of a mushroom. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. No, it's like a real thing. Like, no, this is like a real type, duh. I had no idea. These are the most frequent culprits of climbing dead trees that are usually very wooded. They can establish a base that is really tough and it spreads all the way up into the tree. It produces a shelf-like bracket high up in the tree trunk. So this is the most common culprit, the polypore. It starts at the very base of a dead tree and it actually does climb up. This is exactly the mushroom that I saw just in my backyard. There's a couple species of these polypores that are considered the shelf or the bracket mushroom. I am gonna do my best with these Latin names, but y'all be nice to me. The first one is the artist Conk, Ganoderma species. The turkey tail, Trametes versicolor. Chicken of the woods, Laesporus sulphureus. And the birch polypore, Phomoposis betulina. But yeah, that's the very first category of mushrooms. The second type is the oyster mushrooms. These are actual edible mushrooms and a lot of people grow them. I know they're very popular in the mushroom world because I've heard so much about them. Eventually, I am going to do a character on this mushroom. They are considered shelves whenever they grow up on the trees. They grow in overlapping clusters on anything dead, like decaying hardwood trees, and the mycelium will basically colonize that wood. This is the Pleurotus, ostreatus, and relatives of that. So this is the other section of growing up trees mushrooms. And the third category is the Gilled Fungi. So this is a different type of category because these are gilled fungi. They look a lot different. They don't have any pores. They are gilled, which is why I mentioned the gills. They could be the porcelain fungus or the Elm Oyster. But yeah, super crazy. I'm planning on doing videos on all of these mushrooms if I haven't already, so y'all stick around for those. And last question, do all mushrooms climb trees? What do you think? No, they don't. Just the certain type of mushrooms. So that's another way that you can categorize what type of mushroom is what by wherever they're growing. If they're climbing up a tree, you know that they're probably a saprophyte mushroom and they may be considered a shelf or bracket mushroom just by the look of it. There are so many different types of mushrooms that eat different things. These are the types that like to eat dead wood. With this being said, the mycorrhizal fungi are only there to help trees digest nutrients, and basically the living tree really likes mycorrhizal fungi. Terrestrial sapotropes like the meadow mushroom or the shaggy mane feed exclusively on the dead organic matter in the soil, like the leaves, grass, etc. These types of mushrooms will never actually purposefully hurt the tree, just sort of the dead material around it. So there's a difference between a mushroom attacking a living organism versus already dead organisms. And these are considered the true parasites that attack live trees. And then of course we've got the other parasitic mushrooms that eat living things like ants and beetles. Crazy stuff. So there's a couple different categories for mushrooms just like that. If you have any other questions, please leave it in the comments and I can do a video on it if I don't know it. So what do you guys think? Which climbing mushroom is your favorite? I'm Holly. I make mushroom art on the internet, and thank you guys so much for watching. If you would like to keep up with me, you can follow me on all my socials on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts. I am at susrooms, and if you would like to subscribe, go ahead and do that. I create videos on all of the questions I have about mushrooms. I consider my extras, but I also have an entire playlist where I do videos on a specific type of mushroom, and that is my Meet the Mushroom episodes. If you would like to see how I actually create all of my art and my process, you can watch any of my art vlogs. I have a whole playlist for that one as well. And if you want to see any of my art, you can actually visit my shop, susrooms.com. Oh, and if you want to join my mushroom club, I have a really cool one coming up for next month, so if y'all want to stay tuned for that. I have all of my sets available on my shop, but if you want to receive reoccurring sets, you can just subscribe to my Patreon, and I send those off every single month. I also do international. Anyways, guys, I think that's all for me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye! Mushrooms.